It didn't go live. All right, we are live. Day 4 of what you might call the chicken rescue trial, the open rescue trial, and you could also call it the Alexandra Paul Baywatch chicken rescue trial. It's happening in Merced County, California, and so much is going on. We're going to take you right out to court, but first, let's get an overview of the case.
Hi, Unchained. It's Alexandra. Thank you so much for being here and covering the trial. We really appreciate it.
So today, Foster Farms is finally going to be held to account for concealing evidence of disease and death at their facility. A long time coming, the last month of many court battles, and today I hope the judge does the right thing and holds that they're required to give us the documents that the court has already ordered they're required to give us. But today we're not only asking for the documents, we're making a motion for contempt, because when you consistently defy a lawful order, that is a crime in the state of California. And this is one of many crimes this corporation has committed over the last, frankly, 20 years. And we've got evidence of animal cruelty, evidence of leaving animals to starve to death, collapsing on the ground in their factory farms, animals being boiled alive, all sorts of awful things. And this is just the latest in the litany of criminal violations that Foster Farms has been engaged in.
We have an incredible panel, but we're going to go straight out to the courtroom. Carla Cabral, you are on the scene. What is happening? I hear a jury has finally been selected. Tell us everything.
Yeah, well, it's only been since 1:30, but it feels like a very long day as we went through juror after juror after juror. And as usual, Wayne was incredible at really getting at the details of what people do and what they might be thinking. So it did take the entire time, but we have an actual jury. We have a wonderful jury, and they're actually coming out right now, so I can't really talk about the rest of that right now. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. And when Wayne appears, let us know. But we understand there's a partial gag order. Dotsie Bausch, you have been talking to the defendant. You do a show with the defendant called Switch for Good, and you are a dear friend of Alexandra Paul. So here the both of you are doing your show. What did she tell you about this trial, as she could go to jail for 6 months?
Yes, she emailed me this morning, just Alexandra style, just her thoughts and musings and considerations. And so I'm just going to share. She said I could share with all of you that are watching Unchained. So a few of these things we've heard from Wayne, but from Alexandra's perspective, I think is really interesting too. So she said that first she thought it was fascinating that the jury was so pissed off in the beginning for being called into a chicken trial, just because they thought it was a waste of their time and government resources. But they really blamed Foster Farms and the DA's office mostly for bringing the charges, which Alexandra said was really surprising to her those first couple days. She said 2 jurors who worked at Walmart and Save Mart respectively noted that when someone takes something from one of their stores, the managers tell them to ignore it, that it's just the cost of doing business. So that's what they thought Foster Farms should do. She said also, as the voir dire progressed, people began wondering, as we know, as Wayne told us, why it's such a big deal is being made over these 2 chickens. She also said there seems to be a lot of potential jurors who have animals. And she said she was surprised too that people were not trying to wiggle their way out by saying they couldn't be impartial, especially after that initial 35% were dismissed for hardship. So she said she thought that was going to continue, but it slowed down as it went along, of people not saying that they couldn't be impartial and really treating this trial with the respect that it deserves. She said, and we know this, Foster Farms has not produced the documents that Wayne had asked for, so they were being brought in for criminal contempt today. We'll see if that happened. But she said this is the very first time the actual Foster Farms lawyers will be in the courtroom. I don't know who those yahoos were the last few days, but the big guns came in today to the courtroom. She also said, I wanted to note that our defense consists completely of female witnesses, at least 5, maybe 7, which will include Alicia and Alexandra. The state has 3 to 4 male witnesses, she noted. And she said, all of the lawyers are men, but Alexandra, who is a true suffragette at heart, she said, but I'm okay with that, since it means that there are 6 men in suits fighting over 2 chickens. She said her very favorite sight in the courtroom every day is when all the lawyers huddle in front of the judge and all she can see is their dark suits. And she said, I sit there and I think, wow, this is such a step forward that there are 6 or 7 men in suits discussing the case of 2 chickens right now. And she ended with saying that Caroline, her twin sister, had come to support her. So she said, I've got to go now. I'm going to go spend some time and receive some love.
Wow.
From Alexandra.
So amazing the way you summarize that. That is incredible. And, let us know when we can go back to you, Carla, if Wayne comes out. But I want to get reaction from our former Manhattan District Attorney, Nathan Semmel. You heard Wayne at the start say, we're going to go after Foster Farms today. They're going to be held in contempt. But apparently what we're hearing is that did not happen. Tell us in plain English, what are they talking about?
My understanding, obviously I'm not there, but my understanding is that the defense has reason to believe that Foster Farms has not been compliant with a judge-signed subpoena for records. An attorney who would make a claim like Wayne is making needs to have a good faith basis to do it, and I have no question that he does. So apparently, Foster Farms basically ignored the subpoena or provided minimal documents. And Wayne gave them until today, and then he asked the judge to haul them into court. That happened. Apparently, the judge found that Foster Farms was sufficiently compliant. I'd love to hear Wayne's take on that. And but that they also have to go back and look for the records that Wayne claims exist. So the judge did order, it's my understanding, the judge did order the attorneys to meet with their clients.
And I'm going to
real diligent search,
because Wayne is here, and I don't know if he's going to be able to speak. Can you, Carla, can you hear us?
Speak about.
Yeah, Wayne's just about to speak, but.
And also anything.
Sorry, I just want to wait to go on him until he's ready.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Are you okay?
Today was interesting. Happy Victory Pool. We got Foster Farms on the hook for the documents they're going to provide to us, hopefully by Monday at 1:30. Granted, they've delayed and hemmed and hawed for weeks, but we'll see if we get them. We got a jury. So we're pretty happy about that. But now it's time to go to dinner. Everyone's pretty tired.
I'm so looking forward to dinner.
Is there a gag order in place, Wayne?
So there's a partial gag order on, and I don't even want to call it a gag order. It's just the judge was really just kind of, I guess the one area where there is a gag order is on evidence that has been ruled inadmissible in court. So separately, the judge just kind of admonished us that there's a rule of professional responsibility that counsel and actually defendants themselves are not supposed to say anything that could potentially taint the jury pool. And, argument is, look, me speaking to Jane Unchained or on the DXC Facebook page, the odds that a juror in Merced County is going to see these things, sadly, are quite low. I would love for all 280,000 people in Merced County to be watching our Facebook page and Jane Unchained. That's pretty remote. It's pretty unlikely. And as a general matter, we all have the First Amendment right. But I understood where the judge was coming from. I thought the prosecution engaged in some kind of nefarious tactics. They pulled out like the quote that seemed like I was attacking the judge the most, and didn't have the full context. But, that's what prosecutors do. They pull a lot of tricks like that.
Well, it could be a sign that you're actually being effective, that you're getting attention. Maybe they thought nobody would cover this trial. Now you've been in the Los Angeles Times Inside Edition, as well as our streaming coverage, your YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, so the word gets out.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. And I mean, even before this trial started, we had an op-ed in the New York Times that I still think is arguably the best op-ed in defense of animal rights that's ever been written. You know, rescuing farm animals from cruelty should be legal, and it should, and it will be proven legal. Yeah, I mean, I think Foster Farms is starting to see the downside to pursuing innocent people. Unfortunately, most of you were not in court when Foster Farms' attorney was going red during the motion for contempt. I mean, he was getting pretty agitated, and it was very interesting because it was all about just like this personal enmity he had towards me, because how dare this person accuse me of contempt? How dare this person accuse me of concealing evidence? It's like, it's exactly what you did, and you said it yourself. You said to me, I'm not going to produce documents relating to disease, dead, or condemned animals, and that's exactly what the judge ordered. So there's no argument here. But you know, I wish the judge had been more aggressive about giving us evidence, but you know, I understood this was a misdemeanor case. Probably most judges wouldn't have even given us what we already got, and I think he's trying to be as fair as possible to both sides, understanding that in a misdemeanor case, I mean, my guess is less than 1% of misdemeanor cases even have an SDT served on anyone. Like, the idea that a subpoena ducis tecum was even granted in this case is probably, in his view, a little bit of a stretch. So, but I think we're entitled to on the law, because the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that these chickens had some value. Their health and the diseases they're afflicted with certainly affects their value. So we should be entitled to those documents, and we're going to get them on Monday. So I'm excited about that.
Wow. All right. Well, I know we have an incredible panel here. Anybody have questions? Raise your hand. Wayne, Mick Davudian.
Hi, Wayne. When motions are put in front of the judge, if they're declined, if they're lost by the prosecution, they're lost. Period. But is it my correct understanding that if the defense loses any motions, and should there be a conviction, that's automatically an appeal?
There's potential grounds for appeal for sure on any motion, and that's the case in any criminal case, every motion. But usually, even when you can show some improper ruling or improper conduct by the prosecution or by law enforcement, you have to show what's called prejudice. It's not enough to show that something unlawful happened. You have to show your client was harmed by it. And unfortunately, there are a lot of appellate cases where judges rule, or I should say justices, because these are appellate judges, often rule that, yes, technically something wrong happened to your client, but because you can't show you were harmed, usually because you have to show your client would have otherwise been shown innocent, or at least there would have been a hung jury, if not for the error, you're out of luck. So, I don't know the data in California, but nationwide, the number of cases that end up prevailing on appeal is very, very low. So it's not good strategy to rest on your appellate odds. You want to win at trial, and that's what we're hoping to do over the next week.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, Jen. Wayne, if I could ask a quick follow-up. So, as far as jurors are concerned, I'm thinking, like, if I'm a juror and I want to find someone guilty of theft, I would expect in my mind that the prosecution would have to prove some kind of a motive, like profit, for example, right? In lieu of that, what would be the grounds that a juror would find them guilty of theft?
Yeah, you're right. So you're talking about a concept in the law called mens rea. You ever hear of the term mens rea? What that means in more common language terms is criminal intent. And probably everybody's heard the term criminal intent. And for theft, what the prosecution has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt is that the defendants had the specific and criminal intent to deprive the proper owner of their property permanently. And they have to prove that property was something of value, however slight. So, we're going to argue that it's pretty clear in this case, where you have two women who spent their entire lives aiding human beings and animals, that they did not have the requisite mens rea or criminal intent to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they committed a theft, because their goal here, their intent here, was quite clearly to aid suffering animals. Wasn't to take anything of value, wasn't to deprive an owner of their property, it was merely to give aid to animals that were collapsed on the ground of a slaughter truck, slowly dying of horrific diseases, and frankly dangerous to the human food supply because of the diseases these animals were conflicted with. So that's going to be a key issue we see unfold over the next week.
Okay, we got just a couple of questions. Thank you. I know you're tired. I know you're hungry. My question is,
sure.
are you going to be able to say at closing argument all over the United States and in California, we see every day in the news, people taking stuff out of supermarkets, out of pharmacies, and nobody stops them, nobody reports them, the police doesn't show up. And yet here, women who take 2 chickens because they're sick are prosecuted, and the prosecution team includes somebody who normally handles human murder cases. Can you bring the insanity of that to the jury in your closing or your open?
Yeah, it's already kind of being implied to the jury just by virtue of the amount of time and attention and resources the prosecution is giving to this case. I mean, they have 4 members of their staff in its entirety assigned to this case in court every single day. And you're right that one of the more senior prosecutors who was just assigned to this case is typically a murder prosecutor, as far as I can tell. And I think the jurors themselves are kind of picking up on it. And you saw that during voir dire, a lot of them saying, this seems like a waste of time. I can't believe this is happening. It's possible that actually cuts against us to the extent that the jury is convinced that these defendants were just engaged in a political stunt, or kind of inviting this, looking for trouble. Maybe the jurors actually construe that against us, but I think most of them probably will reach the right conclusion and the accurate conclusion, which is this is a pretty overzealous prosecution where the district attorney of Merced is wasting an enormous amount of taxpayer resources to go after 2 women who, even by the state's own police reports, took something that was worth $8.16. That's what their own police report said. So it's pretty ridiculous, but our argument for that will probably have to be mostly implicit because it's not directly relevant to the elements of the offense that these women have been charged with. So anyways, I got to get going.
Okay.
So, but I really appreciate it. And I want to make sure, we answer any questions if people are here for court support too. But much love to all of you. Thank you so much for the coverage. And try not to get me in trouble again, Jane, because what I said yesterday got me hauled before the judge today. Hopefully that doesn't happen again.
Well, here. Give me a tap on the wrist.
It's all good. It's all good. It's my own mistake. I'm just kidding.
Actually, I think it's a backward compliment, so we'll take it. Thank you, Wayne Hsiung, and we'll see you in court on Monday.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we've got a jury selected. This is huge, so I want to go out to our other panelists. I know, Dotsie, you have to run off to a gala, and you definitely look like you're dressed to the nines. Donnie Moss, what's your reaction to everything that you just heard? You're muted.
Sorry, I was reading the tweets coming out of the courtroom today, and several of the jurors were stating that they were interested in some context here. And I'm just wondering if Wayne is going to have the opportunity to question any of the executives from Foster Farms about what goes on in the warehouses, factory farms, what goes on the conditions on the slaughter trucks where the defendants took the chickens from, and what goes on in the slaughterhouses, and whether or not any of that other footage would be shown to the jurors. Do we know that? That was going to be my question for Wayne.
I think we asked that yesterday, and every day we ask the same question. What I'd like to do is show you just a little bit. It's very disturbing. I know it brought Dotsie to tears yesterday. It certainly is not something I like to watch, but this is the DXE undercover footage that was videotaped prior to Alexandra Paul and Alicia Santurio going and rescuing 2 chickens who were in the truck about to go into this scene. my gosh, Ellen Dent. What is, as somebody who has worked so much in this movement for freedom for animals, what runs through you? And if you were a juror, what would the impact be of showing that video?
Well, I'd be horrified if I was a juror to see that. I'm horrified as an activist. I'm horrified as someone who's seen this footage before, and seen similar footage like it. It's absolutely unbelievable that there's this factory style slaughterhouse that is killing this many beings every single minute in there. And I think that it would definitely be really helpful to their case to be able to show them. And I'm also offended that they put a price tag on their bodies, on their lives. So I know that they're trying to show that they're not really worth that much, or, maybe not a value, but you can't put a value on someone's life.
And, the workers too, when I look at that, I think of these workers, and they are generally people of color at the lowest rung of the social order. A lot of them immigrants, but not all of them. Imagine if you had to kill 140 beings every minute and do it for 4 hours and then a quick break and then do it again. I can't even imagine psychologically the impact of that, and how that should come into the equation. And so should the current health threat, which one of the defense attorneys mentioned, Nathan, about the fact that we've got an avian flu crisis in this country right now. And the only thing the media talks about is the skyrocketing price of eggs. They never talk about the value of these millions of animals who are killed even before they get to the slaughterhouse because of avian flu. But even though we can talk about that, unfortunately, a court of law is very limited, right, Nathan? And a lot of these emotional arguments are not going to happen.
Jane, trials are supposed to be about getting to the truth. And, particularly a prosecutor, and I'm a former prosecutor. I mean, it's been about 20 years since I did it, but, a prosecutor's job theoretically is supposed to be about getting to the truth and doing justice, right? For quote unquote victims, for society. But what we're seeing again is our prosecutors hiding the truth. They're hiding the context. They want the jury to just look at this case in a vacuum. They just want them to see 45 seconds and then just say, no, this is stealing. The chickens belong to someone else. These people took them. Case closed. But context matters. And there are defenses available. And, Alexandra and Alicia are entitled to their constitutional right to put on a defense and show that this was actually a rescue. And in doing so, it's really important for the jury to see why they did what they did. They're not saying it wasn't me. They're not saying I didn't do it. They're saying I did it. Here's why it's not a theft. So, if we want justice in our courtrooms, we shouldn't really be hiding from the truth. And I'll tell you one thing. If Foster Farms was running a clean operation, if what they were doing inside wasn't horrific, I'll bet you they'd want the jury to see what goes on inside to prove that the defendants actually stole.
Well,
right?
Let me jump in there and say one thing. A clean operation, when you're talking about a slaughterhouse, it's like saying, oh, a peaceful war. I mean, I want to read Foster Farms' statement, and here's the New York Times article that said basically 140 chickens are killed every minute on each of the 4 slaughtering lines. So that means 140 times 4 per minute. Okay, live birds seen thrown, crushed, left for dead, suffocated under piles of dead birds. Some aren't properly stunned before they killed. And allegedly the USDA has seen evidence that birds have been dunked alive in boiling water. But let's go to what Foster Farms has said. And they say the highest priority that they have is the welfare of the flocks entrusted in our care. I mean, okay, but your whole business is to kill them. So I'm just pointing that out. In 2013, the company became the first major poultry producer to be independently audited and certified by the American Humane Association, and continues to receive outstanding animal welfare audit scores. All foster farms team members that come in contact with our flocks receive comprehensive animal annual welfare training. Video observation and review at our local facilities ensures that appropriate practices are followed. So we have two entirely distinct worldviews here. I invite foster farms on anytime. We'd love to dialogue with them. I mean, honestly, I think we'd have to go back out to Carla and just get a sense of, Carla, hey, how you doing there? Curtis, we want to have you on Monday maybe. But can we get a sense of the different worldview between you, Curtis, and the 60 demonstrators who are outside court, and what Foster Farms is saying is a completely appropriate operation?
Well, of course, we know that these corporations are always going to say that they have the animal's best interest in mind, that they want to make money. And so it's in their best interest to keep the animals healthy so that they can make the most money. But we all know that that's not true. They're making money by processing these animals as quickly as possible, and they count in the losses that are going to happen. So that's my take on it.
What about you, Curtis? And you've been on the front lines of several of these legal cases.
Yeah, I mean, they have to perpetuate this humane myth, these humane lies, because if the public knew what's going on, they wouldn't support it. And we did a demonstration in one of the grocery stores around here on Tuesday, or whatever the first day of trial was. Yeah, it was Tuesday. And I went and did some scouting at this Rally's, this grocery store, and to find where the Foster Farms product were, see A, if they had Foster Farms, and B, where it was. And they've got this whole section, and it's organic, free range on the labels, and it's got like this nice picture of this like nice chicken, beautiful chicken in perfect shape, and it's just far beyond the reality, far beyond anything near what's actually happening at these facilities. So it's great to put the pressure on this corporation and this industry. It's something I was talking about with some of the other supporters that were here today that weren't at any of the other trials, is that as much as they want to make this trial and then the other trials that have happened, the Smithfield trial and the North Carolina trial, as much as they want to try to narrow it and make it just about theft or just about burglary or just about trespass or whatever the crime they're charged with may be, it's nearly impossible for it not to move into some sort of animal welfare or animal rights issue. The jury is not dumb. People are not dumb. We saw that in the Smithfield trial where the jury got to ask questions, and after a couple days, the jury kind of realized, all right, there's something more going on here. And they started asking about the size of the farm, and they started asking about, the conditions the animals are in. And we just found out today, I'm not sure if you heard this, but one of the very last things that Wayne did was file kind of a motion at the last minute to allow the jury to ask questions, because that seems to be like up to the discretion of the judge, and it happens in some places and not in some places. But the judge right away didn't even deliberate. He just said, yeah, I normally do that. So the jury will be allowed to ask questions, which is awesome in my opinion, because again, people are not dumb and they're going to be asking good questions. And I feel like it's only going to benefit our side when the jury starts, asking questions.
Oh, excellent point. Thank you, Curtis. And Curtis, I hope you join us on Monday. I know that Carla has another engagement. And
I may be able to. I'm not sure. I can't commit right now.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much. So let's talk a little bit about this. I mean, yes, I think Donnie Moss, they always try to keep it on narrow issues, very narrow issues. And yet it's like it will come out. you know, it's like they say, couples never really fighting about the subject that they're fighting about. They're fighting about a much deeper issue that is usually a theme of their relationship. It's kind of like that in a criminal trial.
Well, when information is withheld, we saw how it backfired in Utah in the trial in which Wayne, who's the defense attorney, was actually the defendant because he had taken a pig along with the other defendant, Paul Picklesheimer, out of a Smithfield factory farm. And the jury was not allowed to see the footage of the crime. And the defense team wanted the jury to see the crime, and the prosecution wanted to hide that. And so, as Curtis just mentioned, jurors aren't stupid. They wanted more information. They wanted more context. And because they didn't get it, I mean, there's a theory here that part of the reason they acquitted Wayne and Paul was because they felt that the prosecution was hiding information and that the judge was on their side. I mean, I guess the question I would have for Nathan, who's a criminal defense attorney, is can the judge instruct the jury to just consider the footage in front of them? I mean, granted, I know I've just said that could backfire, but is that something a judge could do? And now we've just learned that the jury can ask questions. So maybe.
No, we don't know. I don't think the jury can ask questions. I think they asked if the jury can ask questions. Maybe
Didn't Curtis say?
Yes.
Oh, no, hold on. Go ahead.
He did.
Yeah. Curtis said that the judge immediately said, yes, the jury will be allowed to ask questions.
Oh, okay. That's great, because that is truly an absolute power. It gives power to the jurors to burst through the wall. And I think it's a very pleasant surprise that the judge decided to grant that. You're going to see, and even if they don't answer the questions, the fact that these jurors are asking the questions, that is a big, big win for the for the defense. Now, I've seen in other cases where the judge will look, I'll read this question, I won't read this question. I'll read this question, I won't read this question. So we don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but you're nodding your head, Mick. Why do you think that's such a big deal?
Well, I mean, it's clearly, if it was the opposite, it would have been horrible, right? So you are correct. The judge may pick and choose which questions to address, but it sounds like this is a very open-minded judge. So the fact that he's actually open to hearing questions, that's absolutely positive.
All right. Now, was this overall a win for the defense today or a lose? I want to go back to our open statement, which we had this morning, which really lays out what Wayne thought was going to happen, not what did happen. But let's listen carefully, and then let's analyze whether that prediction happened and what happened vis-a-vis Foster Farms.
Hi, Unchained. It's Alexandra. Thank you so much for being here and covering the trial. We really appreciate it.
So today, Foster Farms is finally going to be held to account for concealing evidence of disease and death at their facility. A long time coming, the last month of many, many court battles, and today I hope the judge does the right thing and holds that they're required to give us the documents that the court has already ordered they're required to give us. But today we're not only asking for the documents, we're making a motion for contempt, because when you consistently defy a lawful order, that is a crime in the state of California.
So what exactly happened vis-a-vis that? And I'll go back out to court to Carla Cabral. Foster Farms was not held in contempt, but Wayne is getting some of the documents he's been demanding. Is that the bottom line?
Absolutely. I was in the courtroom and they were discussing back and forth the documents that have already been provided. Again, those documents were all electronic. So the judge is asking that foster farms do their best to try to produce actual handwritten documents to verify the information. There was a little back and forth about, because they're just electronic documents and because they've just been obtained now, the veracity of the information that is on those documents. But they were at least produced, and we could end up getting more information.
But here's what I don't understand, and I'm gonna have to go back to Nathan on this. Nathan, the trial starts Monday. I mean, they're getting all these documents now. I mean, isn't discovery supposed to happen like weeks or months before a trial so that, Wayne can prepare his opening statement, so he can do other things he has to do as an attorney, not filter through documents that he should have had weeks ago, according to him?
Yeah, we kind of still have as many questions today as we did, a few days ago. I don't know exactly what, Wayne's basis for knowing that Foster Farms has these documents is. I'd be really curious. My understanding is that the proceeding today was closed door, that the judge did not allow any audience, no media, when questioning Foster Farms about the supposed missing discovery. So I'd be really curious about that.
But I mean, how do you prepare? It's Friday night and the case starts on Monday. Isn't this unfair?
Jane, we don't even know if the DXC video is going to be admissible. Donnie asked the question, is it possible that this judge is going to instruct the jury that they really are only to consider the 45-second video? And it's possible that could happen. It's great news that the jurors can ask questions, but the questions that the judge will read to the jury will be consistent with whatever rulings he makes, whatever defenses he allows, whatever evidence he allows. He's not going to let the judge, the jurors are going to probably have lots of questions, and some of them may not be asked of the jury. So we still have so many questions, but yeah, I mean, it's very, very difficult as an attorney, as a trial attorney, to prepare your opening statement, to prepare your examination, and quite frankly, to prepare for jury selection without knowing exactly what evidence is coming in and what isn't. So, look, Wayne's a great attorney, and he's very, very smart, and he's so quick on his feet. So I'm not really worried about it because it's him, but it's unfair.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems, and I will say this, in the trial in Utah, where Wayne represented himself, Wayne was the defendant, one of two, along with Paul Picklesheimer, and did something very similar, although there were variations to what Alexandra and Alicia Santurio did. Basically, they went into a Smithfield, a pig factory farm, and they documented what they saw. And they took two piglets who were sick out. These photos are horrible. And here's one that really disturbed me. This is dead animals discarded. But in that case, Wayne represented himself. There he is in Utah court, along with Paul Picklesheimer to his left in the beard. And then to the left of that is Paul's attorney. And the judge was very, very hostile, extremely hostile to the defense, and they still won. So you can't really tell. Ellen, as somebody who is in the trenches fighting for animal rights, you come across a lot of people that should hypothetically not care or should be opposed, like the police officers who would monitor your vigils and your protests. And yet you found that they were some of the more sympathetic people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once you see and once you know what happened to these animals as a part of animal agriculture, whether it's at the farm or the slaughterhouse, or even arriving on the truck, which is where those officers saw the pigs when they came, to the slaughterhouse and they were transported inside, they made that connection at that point. And I would say several of those officers did. One of the officers even had a pet pig, and he didn't eat, their flesh because of that.
And one of them went vegan, didn't they?
At least two. One was already vegan for health, but I believe that, he also added in, for ethical reasons after what he saw at the slaughterhouse. And he was very helpful in our last vigils.
Wow, it's so amazing, and you can never tell. It's like the intelligentsia who you would expect would immediately get the connection between animal abuse, pandemics, avian flus, climate change, habitat destruction, wildlife extinction, human world hunger, with 8 billion humans eating 80 billion animals every year who are eating a good percentage of the food. But it's not them. Often it's, I will hand anybody who comes into my apartment to fix anything or do any kind of work, I'm going to give them a veg magazine, give them a book. You wouldn't believe it's often the people you least expect who are fixing the plumbing, who are like, yeah, I want that. I want to switch. My wife's interested. And then some other people that you would say, oh, you've got to get this. Crickets, they don't get it. So it's really not about any kind of construct, and that's like the crapshoot that is a jury, Donnie Moss.
Yes, I was thinking when Ellen was talking about the police officers at the vigils. In New York, once a year, there's a ritual animal sacrifice called Koporos, where tens of thousands of chickens are slaughtered in the streets. And, we can't brush everyone. We can't paint everyone with the same brush because, I often will stand next to the many police officers who are there and listen into what they're saying. And I find what they're saying is so interesting. Some of them will say they're here for chickens. Who cares? They're just chickens. And then you'll hear other police officers saying, isn't this horrible from a humane standpoint? And then others can't believe there are slaughterhouses on public streets. So, I've learned we can't paint everyone with the same brush. And I guess that goes for jurors too.
Yeah. So, we have to say that after a very long jury selection process, Monday is the big day. Carla, how long are they expecting this trial to go?
The thought right now is possibly just until Thursday. And on Tuesday, the court won't even start until 1:30. It's 10 a.m. on Monday, but it won't be until 1:30 on Tuesday. But again, the thought is that it could possibly be over by Thursday.
And then there's the deliberations, and you don't know how long those deliberations are going to take. I mean, considering how long jury selection took Nathan Semmel, former Manhattan assistant district attorney, you could have deliberations that could go on for days on a misdemeanor trial.
It's almost unheard of, but it can happen. Sure. California is one of the rare states that actually has the requirement of juries for misdemeanors. New York now has it for all misdemeanors, but that's recent. New York only has 6 jurors for misdemeanors. California has 12 jurors. So, you've got to have a unanimous verdict one way or the other. So it could take time, even though it's a misdemeanor charge. But, I was thinking, what, the longer the better. Every single day this goes on, there's been a little bit more media attention. There's been a little bit more discussion. So who knows what, by next week, maybe everybody will be covering this.
Yeah, well, it's creeping up. I don't know if we've gotten any new coverage, but certainly so far you have Inside Edition, and we'll have to show that clip on Monday. I'm going to dig that one up. And you've also got, of course, the New York Times did an op-ed piece, Rescuing Farm Animals from Cruelty Should Be Legal. That was before the trial started. You have some local news coverage, and then you have the Los Angeles Times. And it's very interesting. The word open rescue is used by the media, which is a big victory. Just like during the pig trial in Utah, even the judge started referring to the pigs by their name, Lily and Lizzie. Is this how social change occurs, Mick Davudian?
Well, perhaps, but I think social change, happens with the society, with individuals, with every one of us. Let's face it. I mean, unless you're a sociopath, nobody wants to torture animals. Nobody enjoys watching some of the footage we're seeing. And this is the tip of the iceberg, right? We know so much more horror happens behind the scenes. So our friends, family, they're content eating their meat in neatly packaged, boneless breast of chicken that they buy in the supermarket. they either truly don't know, which is very few of them now with social media. I mean, you'd have to be under a rock not to know. More likely, they conveniently don't want to know. They want to believe that these animals live the kind of, happy life, or at least not tortured and then humanely slaughtered, which we know is impossible. And these are babies anyway. They don't even live their lives. They live, 6 weeks, 15 weeks, I don't know, depending on the animal. It's ridiculous. So going back to the jury poll, these are people, even the folks like the policemen and the folks who work in these industries, they don't want to support torture and murder. And let's call it what it is. It's murder at a mass scale. So, I mean, that's where the society will need to basically evolve, and hopefully as soon as possible.
Well, I think, you bring in a really good point. We're talking about this company. There are similar companies all over the world. It's really a consumer issue. And the whole idea of this trial is not just to wake up the powers that be, but to wake up consumers. And they are at the heart of it. I mean, essentially, consumers are the reason why these animals are being killed. If they didn't sell, just today, I was in a supermarket and I was pleasantly shocked. Yes, it was Santa Monica, but the front counter was filled with fake chicken nuggets, plant-based. I shouldn't say fake. Plant-based chicken nuggets, plant-based chicken wings, plant-based, all these alternative meats. And I was like looking at it, I was like, wow, it used to be that these foods were in the back section where nobody could find them. This was front and center, and I grabbed several to support and also to eat.
Jane, can I segue for a sec? Can
sure.
I have a moment?
Of
So you
course.
know this story. So you and I were at the Farmer John the last day of operation of Farmer John last month at the vigil. And it was a few hours long. It was very cold, and I really had to use the restroom badly. And the only walking distance restroom was across the street, a gas station that has a bathroom, and it had been basically closed, right? And we all had surmised that they had closed it so the visual attendees and the activists couldn't use it. Well, we were wrong, because shortly thereafter, a friend called me on the phone who knew I really needed to use the restroom, but I didn't want to break away from the vigil. She said, guess what? They've opened the bathroom across the street, run, which I did. I run over there, I walk in, and the first display right in front of my face is Beyond Jerky, vegan cookies, and a whole bunch of other vegan stuff. So I was like, wow, what is this? It's a small gas station. And so I sheepishly asked the guy behind the counter, are the restrooms open? May I use them? And then he said, let me ask the owner, which was another guy right next to him. And the guy very politely said, yes, of course, sir, and pointed me the way. No, you have to be a customer or any of that stuff. So anyways, as I'm walking out, I did what you do. I grabbed a whole bunch of vegan stuff to support them. And I get to the register, and it's the owner ringing me up. And so I started chatting him up. And I said, is your business going to be impacted by the slaughterhouse across the street closing? He goes, yeah, maybe a little, but most of our business is the gas. And besides, the smell is horrendous. We hate it. You get used to it, but it's horrible. And so I tried to change the subject to a positive. I said, you have all this amazing vegan stuff right in the front. It's the last thing I would expect for a gas station across the street from a slaughterhouse. He said, oh, no, we have them because people, the workers there have been asking for it. And apparently several people have made comments. And one guy specifically, the owner said, he walked in and said, do you have any of the veggie jerkies? And they were out. So he offered them the regular beef jerky. He said, no, I don't want that. I work across the street. I know how that is. We don't eat the crap we make.
Wow. Well, that's heavy. That is really heavy. And again, Oxfam reported that in some slaughterhouses, I'm not saying this is Foster Farms, but they did an overall study and they said, some of these workers have to wear adult diapers because they get so few bathroom breaks. And so imagine the people who have to do all this killing all the time and the impact that it has on them. We know psychologically that they suffer from PTSD and all sorts of other related problems. This is a bigger issue than theft. And I just wonder how much of this big issue we're going to be able to get before the jury, and whether a lot of these jurors might already have that percolating in their heads. I mean, how can we even not make the connection between climate change and animal agriculture when right now California, where I'm at, is experiencing bizarre weather? I experienced hail in Venice Beach just the other day. You have experienced tremendous weather, Carla, in terms of extraordinary rainfall that is killing people, and snow in California.
Yeah, let me also say that came up in jury selection. The weather here is just so bad. You know, it's pouring down rain, and it's scheduled to continue pouring down rain for the next week. And there were evacuation orders that were given for certain counties, and so they had to make sure that none of the potential jurors lived in any of those counties or might be affected by a possible evacuation due to the heavy rains.
Yeah, or worked in them. Presumably all the jurors would live in this county, but they could work outside in another county. They might have transportation issues. Yes, I mean, here we are. One might say this trial is fiddling as Rome burns, because when you think of what tax dollars should be going to is to mitigate climate change, is to mitigate animal suffering, is to improve human health, it's to stop habitat destruction, and imagine all the water use and all the other pollution from factory farms in general. So we're at the end almost of our coverage for today. Remember, we're going to be back on Monday. I think 4:30 is probably a good time. 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern. Let's go to final thoughts, and we'll start with Ellen.
My final thought is I'm really glad that the jury is going to be able to ask questions, and that hopefully they'll get a lot more insight into this industry. And I'm so hopeful that they'll be able to see that video and see that this was a rescue. This was not an intent to steal at all. They were trying to save these beings from an absolutely terrible, horrific fate. And I also want to add that I've spoken to several workers at the slaughterhouse that are extremely unhappy, and there's such a high turnover rate. They get injured on the job, like literally pieces of them get cut off, you know, doing this work. So it is very important to focus on that too. And I hope they can also, you know, kind of, I guess, share that with the jury, that human aspect too, that there's also humans that are working in there that are also victims. And I absolutely love what Mick heard about that, that, you know, the workers aren't eating these animals because they see how horrific it is.
Yeah, and also slaughterhouses in general were COVID hotspots, and those workers on the kill floor died disproportionately during the peak of COVID. Something else, who knows, maybe that'll get into the trial. All right, final thought, Donnie Moss.
You were talking about social change. We were talking about the impact of consumers on social change, and consumers need a nudge. Consumers need to be disrupted. You know, I think that, you know, we talk about this a lot, that change happens in the discomfort zone. And change happens when people are willing to take risks. And we've seen that in every social justice movement. And this trial is just epitomizes social change and the effort to affect social change. You have two defendants who knowingly took chickens that didn't belong to them out of a truck, knowing what the potential consequences are, because they wanted to provoke a prosecution which would shed light on a bigger picture, and they're willing to take a risk. And it's at times like this, with these risks, that we see the needle moving in the direction of positive change.
And this is the action at the center of the case you're looking at. This is caught on tape. They knew they were being videotaped. They released the video, and it was only after, well after they released this video, that these charges came down. I mean, they could have easily done this without videotaping, and none of this would happen. By the way, Alexandra Paul, and I believe also Alicia, but I know for sure Alexandra Paul, I think it was both of them, were offered numerous plea deals, and they turned them down. Yes, because they wanted to get the word out. They want this to be before the public, and that is martyrdom. All right, final thought, Mick Davudian.
Well, the final thought, I guess what I would say is there is a thread running through all these things, right? So this particular case is about chickens. The one earlier in Utah was about pigs. But the species doesn't matter because it's, as human beings, we have basically turned Earth into hell for every other species. Be it in the air, on land, in the oceans, we're decimating species after species, committing horrendous crimes. These are absolute crimes. And no wonder there are so many books written and movies, sci-fi movies about aliens from outer space coming in, taking over the Earth, doing horrendous things to humans, or abducting them and doing horrendous experiments on humans. These have been horrors that people it's think of their nightmares, right? But we actually are making it reality for every other animal on this planet. We are committing these horrors on them that we imagine in movies.
Yes, we are, and it's it's morally reprehensible because it's not necessary. And that is the whole bottom line. And frankly, that's why we started Unchained TV, because the news media, just the other day on a very progressive network, the host is talking about, well, we can't do it without eggs and milk. Hello? Are you in the 1950s with plant-based milk skyrocketing, with an avian flu, with eggs being cholesterol bombs, and people are dying of heart disease because of over cholesterol? Like, where are you living? You're living in a world where you get your paycheck from the advertisers, and the advertisers are meat, dairy, and pharmaceuticals for the most part. And that's why we started Unchained TV. Final thought. I always forget who's done the final thoughts. Nathan, and then we're going to go to Carla for the final thought. Go ahead, Nathan.
Well, I'm excited that we're starting on Monday, finally. Alexandra and Alicia have been waiting a long time for their day in court, and they're finally getting it. So I'm happy for them. The more of these trials that happen, the more people who are brave enough to do these rescues, the more the public is going to hear about it. We know that animals are not voiceless, but they also don't really, they can't speak in court. And I think Alexandra and Alicia aren't the only ones getting their day in court. I think these chickens, the jacks who survived and the chicken that did not, are getting their day in court, and it's important, and I'm glad it's finally happening.
All right, and for the last final comment, our fabulous Carla Cabral, who has been doing an amazing job on the scene. I think she gets another round of applause from our panel and from everybody watching. Oh my gosh, I've said this before, a network is going to snap her up. And she's going to be on a network. I'm talking about a mainstream media network. You just can't talk about animal rights, honey, if you're on a mainstream media network. Take it from me. Okay, final thought.
Well, I'm privileged to be here and honored to be on Unchained TV and grateful that you're covering this. I would say that my final thought is that this is going to be very exciting, and it is not just about Jax and Ethan. Alicia and Alexandra, of course, are fighting for the right to rescue, and I think that this jury that was selected is a very good jury. Watching during the jury selection over the course of the last few days, I've seen the change in the people. We're out in the hallway. We can hear what people are saying. And the attitude has definitely changed over the course of the last few days. And it's been made very clear that this is not a case of who done it, but why done it. And so it was very important for people to make sure that they could be fair and unbiased in judging not just what happened, but why it happened. And so that does also go back to hopefully getting the footage from inside Foster Farms into this trial. So again, I could not be more excited about what's to come next week. I'm gutted that I can't be here. If anything changes, I will absolutely be running back because I don't want to.
A quick question. It's the most obvious question, which I failed to ask. What's the makeup of the jury? How many men? How many women? Anything else you could tell us?
Am I allowed to say that?
Well, I think you could say how many. I don't know. I mean, every trial I've ever covered, and I've covered.
Okay, all right, that's fine. I just
you can't reveal their names, but I think you could say, Nathan, you could say, basic makeup, gender.
Yeah,
okay.
As long as you haven't been gagged, and my understanding is you haven't. Yeah, as long as you don't give names, obviously, but yeah.
Right. I don't know anybody's names, but we're looking at 10 women and 2 men that are on the jury. We have, I wrote it in my notes. 1, 2, 3. I believe that there are 4 people of color on the jury. And then the 2 alternates are both people of color as well, male. And of course, I'm, just saying how they present to me as male and female.
All right. That's interesting. Almost an entirely female jury. Whoa. We may have buried the lead, people, as they say in the news business. That could be good. I just have to ask, Donnie, what do you think?
Well, I mean, if you look at the makeup of the animal rights movement, it's far more women than men. And I think that's because, and maybe this is sexist, but I think we could probably agree that generally speaking, women have more compassion than men. And that's a good thing in this case.
I think it might be a good thing, but I don't want to jinx anything. Who knows? That's the thing about trials. You don't know what's going to happen. And that's why you need to join us. I think we got all the final thoughts. Yes? Please join us Monday at 4:30. We're going to go live and pray that we get somebody outside court. I know we'll find somebody who will do it. We would prefer Carla, but she's got to take care of a dog that she made a commitment to take care of. And that's a special needs dog. And I totally get that. So we really appreciate you. What I'd like to say is my final thought is, please, our streaming network, which is no longer Jane Unchained, it's now Unchained TV. It is a global streaming network, okay? And we are all out there working super hard to basically allow people for free to see content that they're not getting on mainstream media. So I would urge you all to please download it. You can download it for free on your phone. Just put in Unchained TV into your phone app store, and it'll pop right up for free. You can register. We prefer that, but you don't have to. And you can also watch it on your Amazon Fire Stick, on your TV, on your Roku device, on your Apple TV device, and we're about to be on all Samsung TVs. So this is 100% nonprofit. We do this for one reason only. We do it to get the word out, because the only way we're going to prevent a climate apocalypse is to get the word out to 8 billion people out there, that there is another way, that we do not have to kill to survive, and that in fact it's killing us. So I urge everybody, please download Unchained TV. It's fun too. We have reality TV shows, Pig Little Lies. We have cooking shows. We have music videos. We have talk shows, and we have our live trial coverage. So thank you so much. We will see you all Monday at 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern, right here on Unchained TV. See you then. Bye-bye.